Hey everybody, it's Bread on Ted here, and today I'm going to be doing a top 5 list. So, you saw the title. I'm going to be doing a top 5 list of my top 5 favorite dirt bikes. So, just going to be ranking all of the dirt bikes that I've ridden. I guess top 5 favorite. It's just a list of the top 5 dirt bikes that I've ridden, not really my favorites, just the top 5 that I've ridden. I'm ranking the 5 that I've ridden. But yeah, so without further ado, let's get right into this. So, starting off our list at numero uno, or I guess no, it would be numero cinco, would be the Apollo RFC X18. So, um, this bike is, well, where do I begin with this bike? So, this is a cheaper bike now. This in general, it's okay for the price. For the price, it's okay. I've seen these things actually get quite pricey. Like we're talking around like $1,000, and these things are not worth $1,000. These things are worth like half of that at most. So you can see this one right here is actually $1,000. It's not worth $1,000. Oops, didn't mean to click on that. But just these bikes in general, so a little pricey. They're not very strong. Like they're kind of dingy. And also, this bike doesn't really know entirely what it wants to be. Like it doesn't really have it doesn't really feel right. Like it wants to be as like a small motocross bike, and it's not really that good at it. But it also kind of wants to be a trail bike as well, and it's not too good at that either. So, from what I've ridden this thing, the engine doesn't feel like it wants, like sometimes the engine doesn't want to do something. Like sometimes the engine will just be like, no, I don't really feel like doing that right now. And then other times the engine will just completely kaput on me. Um, yeah, so it's not the best bike. If you can get this for a cheaper price, then yeah, it's okay. But it's a Chinese bike, so the upside is it's very, very customizable, and it's very, very easy to like tune and stuff like that. So the upsides would be it's a very easily customizable bike. You can pretty much make this thing about as unique as you want it to be, or as generic as you want it to be. The downsides are it's not that good of a bike. There are better options, and this it shouldn't be one of those options if you're looking for a small pit bike. Especially not for this price. But if it was cheaper, it could actually be more competitive, in my opinion. But at this price, no. So that was so the next bike I'm going to be doing is this is what the Apollo X18 wants to be. So in number 4 we have the YCF 190 Daytona. So this bike is genuinely good. Um, I feel like this bike genuinely like this is about you can get this thing a little about the same size as the Apollo for about twice the price, but it's worth it in every way, shape, and form. So, starting off, obviously, is the fact that it's actually has a decent engine in it. This is a true and proper racing engine, and it's actually designed to be a small race bike, and it does that very, very surprisingly well. Like this bike genuinely feels like a racing bike as compared to the Apollo, where it's not entirely sure what it wants to be, and for twice the price you're getting so much more with the Daytona. And when I rode this bike, it felt very, 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 what's the word I'm thinking of? It felt very, very, very refined. It felt like it knew what it wanted to do. And the upsides of this bike would be that it feels very refined. It feels like a proper race bike, and I think that's the thing that the small bikes suffer from, is that they don't really feel like they're meant to race, but this one actually feels like it can race. And you can get this bike for, as I said, about twice the price of the Apollo. This is about $2,000. That's actually a 140. There's a 150. There's another 150. But these things actually go for about 2,500, and they're worth it if you're into racing small bikes. Other than that, though, the downside to this bike is that parts for this thing are almost impossible to find. The upside of the Apollo was that parts were like stupendously easy to find. They were plentiful and they were cheap. Parts on this thing are not cheap to find. Some of this stuff is in-house YCF design, and YCF isn't necessarily the most, I'll say they're not necessarily the most, what's the word I want to say responsive. They're just not very like to even obtain one of these bikes in the first place is a arduous process. It's worth it, but it's difficult to find these bikes, and it's even more difficult to get your hands on them. And it's, if you break something on this bike, good luck trying to find a replacement for it. So great bike, but just really difficult to maintain. And that's why it's in the fourth, is just the amount of maintenance that this thing requires, or not requires, but like if it happens, you're kind of stuck in the mud, really. So that's my only gripe with this bike, is that it doesn't have it's a very difficult bike to maintain, is I guess the proper word to say. But if you can find parts for it, it's a great small bike. So number 3, we have a very, very legendary bike from what I hear, and it is the one and only Honda CRF 150F. So where do I really begin with this bike? Let's actually get this picture in a new tab. So where do I really begin with this bike? So this bike is known for being not only extremely reliable, but for also being a lot of people's first bikes. So for a lot of people, this was their first bike. And for some people, it's still their main bike. It's a very reliable bike, and it has enough power to keep it competitive and fun, while also at the same time being being reliable, which is a big upside, because the race bikes are, well, if you know how a race bike is, you know they are you have to replace the valves every 60 hours. So yeah, they can get very maintenance upkeepy. I guess that I don't know how to word that, but just race bikes in general can get very monotonous and difficult to maintain. And this is a reliable bike that a lot of people find it's really good. This bike can be used for motocross. It can actually be given a very good, like this exhaust. This isn't a very good exhaust. You can get a much better racing exhaust. You can get rid of that kickstand. You can get, on this bike, it actually has the inverted fork suspension. And you can genuinely turn this bike into a really decent motocross bike from what I've seen. So you can turn this bike into what you want and what you want it to do. Similar to the Apollo, except it's just better in every way. Like, this is just a genuinely better Apollo. And they're easy to find and relatively cheap and very good bikes. And the only downside is that my only real complaint with this bike is that they're not made anymore, obviously. So if you can find one, you're not going to find a brand new one. They don't make these things anymore, and just it doesn't have enough power. Like, after a while, it will start to get kind of boring. But if you're not like constantly ripping it around and wanting more, then yeah, perfect bike for the everyday weekend warrior. And at number 2, my second favorite bike, we have a bike that it is very, very, it's an interesting bike. I have to put in words. I don't know if I can put it in words how interesting it is. It's a very influential bike, and it did a lot for the whole sport in general, in my opinion, or from what I've seen. It is the Yamaha YZ250F, per- particularly the ones from 2002 to 07, I think. But this bike is a very authentic race bike. It is, without a doubt, a very interesting. It's an interesting bike, to say the least. It's quite a bike to own. Once you go, because I know a lot of people, they don't start on race bikes, and once you transition to a race bike, everything on it is different. And this bike is not necessarily a very forgiving bike. If you don't know how to ride a dirt bike, you will be quite shocked to see what this bike can do to you. So overall, like, it's like, first of all, it's a 4-stroke kickstart. So if you throw this thing over, if you stall this thing, fat chance starting it up. If you tip it, fat chance starting it up. If it's too hot, fat chance getting it to start up. So, yeah, it's mean. It's a kickstart. It's, 250. It's loud. It's a race bike, no kickstand, so you gotta stick with a triangle. But overall, a very, very, very fun bike. Loads of fun to ride. They're actually they're surprisingly lightweight, especially for the year. They're surprisingly lightweight. They're surprisingly easy to throw around, and honestly, just, you know, it, it it's at a perfect seat height, in my opinion. For somebody of my size, it's actually at a very perfect seat height. And yeah, it's a very good bike. It's a very good race bike, in my opinion. And it's my second favorite bike that I've ridden. Not much else to say there. It's an authentic race bike. And finally, at number one, we have a bike that, well, we have the dirt bike. In my opinion, this is the dirt bike. Um, it's a bike that it's probably it's probably one of the, I'd say it's probably one of the most popular bikes like you can probably get today. So at number one, that's not a very good image of it. Here's a much better image. So at number one, we have the 2022 Honda CRF, or not the 2022, but the Honda CRF 250R, just the bike in general. So this thing is the dirt bike. It is the one to own. This is the current one I ride, so of course it's number one, but I really do like it, and there are a lot of features that I find interesting about it. So not only is it just, you know, just pure, you know, it is a pure race bike, but it's also a smart bike. It's got loads of technology. It's got all sorts of bells and whistles. And whether or not, in my opinion, those are necessary, like, unlike the Yamaha, where, like, that thing was, like, supremely just bare bones race bike, this thing, I feel like the only downside to it is it has technology in it that I could definitely do without. And I do feel like it's a transition. If you've never touched a fuel injected bike before, this thing will feel different. But once you learn that little fuel injection curve, it's probably the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. Genuinely a great bike. It's got all, as I said before, it's got technology, and it's got, like, certain modes to choose from. It's got, like, launch control. It's got, like, electronic everything, and, genuinely a really, really great bike. It's a perfect bike for not only beginners, in my opinion, but also even seasoned veterans. Everybody can have loads of fun on this bike, and I think its versatility and its sheer. It's not only a versatile bike, but it's also a genuine race bike. Like, it's both of them, and that's why I think a lot of people really like it. And in my opinion, that's why it's one of the best bikes I've ridden. Is that it's fun for me. it's just a bike that I can ride on. It's not a bike I need to do like a ritual before I can start it. It's a bike that I can press a button, go, and start smashing some lap times. And that is my top 5 list on my favorite dirt bikes. So, or the favorite dirt bikes I've ridden. So, once again, this video is just my own opinion on bikes that I've ridden. Um, no particular reason, or not, what am I saying? No particular bike, like, I'm like, man, I really, I really hate this bike. Like, there's not really a bike I've ridden where I'm like, man, I really hate it. In my opinion, every bike has upsides and every bike has downsides. It's just something that comes with riding a dirt bike in general, any dirt bike in general. So, don't be like, oh, well, I can't believe you said this about the Yamaha, or I can't believe you think that the YCF has hard parts. I found the parts easy to find. Well, that's, your experience with a bike. This is my experience with the bike. So don't take everything I say, too seriously. It's just, my opinion, and it's all in good fun. If you own any of these bikes and you think I didn't say anything nice about it, just remember that, I don't mean any ill. I don't mean anything mean by saying that. I just given the facts as I see them, or from my experience, I'm given the facts. But yep, that's my list. Just decided to make a video, and hopefully you guys do enjoy this, or I do enjoy these top 10 or top 5 videos. I mean, not top 10, but maybe countdowns. I may do some countdowns more in the future. Just kind of what felt like posting a video, but I'm kind of rambling on for a little too long, so I'm just going to end the video now. So, goodbye, everybody, and have a very humble Halloween, because that's coming up. So, yep, happy Humbleween.